Welcome to the Decoders, where we demystify and decode some of today's biggest ideas. Shows presented by Aviso AI, the end-to-end revenue platform used by go-to-market teams at New Relic, GitHub, and Honeywell. Today's episode features Mayo. Mica has earned many accolades across her time leading go-to-market ops and transformation at companies like ServiceNow, Juniper, and Sun Microsystems. But most recently, one of the things I have to mention is Mica being recognized as the driving force behind the transforming of the transformers. Mica, how do you even get a reputation like that? And why is Accenture calling you that? Let's unpack that a little bit. Welcome to the show, Mica.
Thank you, Kevin. Pleasure to be here.
Now, before we talk about this amazing reputation that you got from transforming of the transformers, let's start with something that I think we're all kind of scratching our heads on and have perspectives on, right? And look, we've seen it with the cloud, we've seen it with social, we've seen it with big data, but AI seems to have lasting power. Is AI really this generation's driving force behind another iPhone moment?
Seems like you can't have any conversation, any conference without talking about AI and large language models and generative AI. And I know I certainly jumped on the bandwagon and started using the free version of ChatGPT pretty early, but it is an inflection point. How I would know, or anyone would know that, aside from its frequency of discussion, is whenever you feel uncomfortable, right? You know that that is a monumental time for change. And I think everyone's feeling pretty uncomfortable.
Well, you have a tremendous amount of experience managing change. For our audience listening, Mica has held leadership roles and successful runs at companies like ServiceNow, Juniper, and Sun Microsystems, which means Mica has worked with leaders like a Scott McNeely, a Rami Rahan, or a Bill McDermott. These are incredible leaders to work for, and I'm looking forward to her sharing some of these examples. But Mica, transition, change, uncomfortable, like these are all things that I think no matter what industry you're in or what occupation you're in, you kind of started to feel more of that this year. When you think about folks, whether they're starting a new job, they're fighting to keep their existing job, or they're managing changes, like what are some of the best companies doing to really empower their employees to be confident as they go through this amount of unprecedented change?
I think there's different vantage points that you could look at when you think about managing change. So as the enterprise or the company, how do you help your people with that? And really that came to the forefront for the first time for me, I think just during the pandemic, but also with all of the world social unrest and the like, just became very clear that you can no longer separate kind of personal and outside of work from that which is happening at work. The two collide. And ignoring that is disrespectful to people. You have to be open, if not kind of moving towards those crucial or uncomfortable conversations. And I think that's how you frankly create the type of trust that is ultimately necessary for people to be their best, and then for companies or entrepreneurs to ultimately have their best success. And so really is leaning in to that discomfort, instead of shying away from. And that's how companies as well as people, me, can manage through what is oftentimes unimaginable, unexpected change.
It's well said. And the people component is so big, no matter what department you're in, right? For us, particularly on the go-to-market side, we kind of have to get used to change. We live in a world of uncertainty. Even the best companies do, right? And we'll pick one small example. You look at something like the workforce, even within sales. And let's talk about reps, for example. We've seen this at the largest, most successful companies, some of the which like you have ran and you've been at. And we've seen this with some of the up-and-coming companies on the private side. From a best practices standpoint, what have you seen effective for managing this like mix of new reps coming in, let's call them younger, versus maybe more experienced senior reps almost transitioning out?
Yeah, so I think probably the best example would be, at ServiceNow. When I had first started much smaller, right? Only in total, a little over 6,000 employees, about 2 billion, a little under in annual recurring revenue. And as I exited a couple of months ago, over 24,000 employees and doing that annual recurring revenue in a quarter, right? So tremendous amount of growth in a little over 5-year period. So you can imagine there are always new reps. There are always tenured reps. And then there were, folks leaving as well and attriting and new coming in. So I think at any given moment, there was likely more than half of the rep population as new. Recognize that you've got to keep things simple. You cannot bombard folks with a lot of competing demands, competing attention. So you've got to have a pretty clear set of target focus areas, as well as what is your tried and true sales methodology, and really stick to that, focus on that. It's almost like a constant back to basics and hold and do those few things really, really well. In terms of new reps, kind of like most scenarios when you're dealing with people, make sure that they're supported. Again, trust is what is ultimately key. So making sure that they have the support from those who are more tenured, certainly from their manager. And as a RevOps person, make sure that they have the support of that RevOps team to provide that surround, help them get to that ramped productivity as quickly as they can.
What about changes as new revenue leaders come in? I know that's a different ball game, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on, as new CROs come in, new sales leaders, how should revenue and ops leaders think about best supporting? Even if you had a framework of the first 3 things you might help them prioritize, what might that be?
I think first and foremost, be proactive, be planful, right? So important that you recognize that whilst that new CRO, or in cases in my past, new CEO, right? They're coming in new, they're drinking from a fire hose, just as you would coming into your new role, albeit might not have the C in front of your title. You're drinking from a fire hose. And so how can you synthesize the latest goings on, maybe progress against priorities and goals? Be very detailed, though, in your current status results, progress against those OKRs or KPIs, and be transparent about where there is some challenge as well as opportunity, such that they don't have to do that sifting synthesis themselves, nor allow for that span of time for them to get there. That, to me, is your responsibility and your accountability, since you do have that continuity and you are in that supporting function. So do that proactively. Again, don't sit back and wait for that prompted question to say, where are we with X, Y, or Z initiative? No, be prepared to have that at the ready and provide that in an anticipatory way.
It's almost like helping people remember that they have the experience and confidence to avoid fearing flying blind, right? Because like we were just describing, that's somewhat part of the job in a role like, or in really a function like go-to-market, is helping navigate and move through those headwinds per se. What about with CEO transitions? With a nickname like Transforming the Transformers, I have to ask, right? With CEOs, successions or transitions, what role do you see, and from even your peers or yourself, where have revenue operation leaders, ops leaders kind of stepped in terms of helping transition or prepare for that CEO succession?
I think, understanding or trying to quickly understand what are the maintained priorities for that new CEO and leader, and then what priorities are going to change. And then making sure that you there too are planful about sharing progress against whatever aligned OKRs and KPIs for those continuous priorities, as well as gauging and preparing for them kind of where we are with maybe the new, right? In terms of I don't know, any foundation that was laid from a prior and so forth. I have seen a number of these over the course of my career. So it was Kevin Johnson, who was CEO, who went on to be the CEO of Starbucks at Juniper Networks. And I remember me and our segment, kind of divisional CRO, being really thoughtful to make sure that we were providing kind of a sense of where do we stand against the prior priorities? What do we see as potential opportunity as Rami was kind of taking the baton toss from Kevin. The most elegant CEO change that I've seen is that with Bill McDermott taking over from John Donahoe. That one was so well timed. As a company, we love, man, I probably should use the present tense. I mean, there was just such love for John Donahoe at ServiceNow. And so to find out that he was leaving to follow his dream to be the CEO of MIKI, and then Bill coming over, all that was done same day. And what Bill did to ensure that there was really, really solid trust by the leadership team was he was very quick and held to his word that this was not an opportunity to kind of sweep out all of the old and bring in all new. There was actually very little leadership change, at the C-suite level for some time. So he held to that again, ensuring that he did not erode that trust from leadership team as well as the rest of the company. And even in the culture tenets and core values, there were only modest tweaks that were made, again, to try to hold to what was working well, right? No broke, no fix, and hold to that whilst evolving where there was some opportunity to do so.
Mica, you sound like a coach, the way you describe things. I could imagine just having an opportunity to work for you or be a part of a team that you helped run. You build a lot of confidence and trust with the people who you work with. I think that shines with just the nuances that you're pointing out. So I think if there's a takeaway for the listeners, right, always stay ready and then let that preparation meet opportunity. Also a line from Coach Monty Williams. So as we move on to another big topic that our listeners will want to hear your thoughts on, let's talk a little bit about growth at all costs versus efficiency. We are in that period where it's been a bit of a transition over the last 5 to 10 years. Where we are today, I think that's where I'd love to get your thoughts on is as you start to think about how do you actually both continue to grow, but also remain capital efficient. What are your maybe perspectives on, in particular, are growth and budget size mutually exclusive?
Yeah, so maybe I'll first start with how you opened on this direction of conversation, right? Growth at all costs versus being more prudent with your spend and capital. It's funny, maybe because I have a background in finance. The thing that you have to anchor to is best, I think, described in the rule of 40. And so for those maybe not following or less familiar to just SaaS and how companies have typically been assessed, you add your revenue growth to your EBITDA margin or your profit margin. It's the two together. And the higher you are above 40, when you add the two, the better an investor would feel about the lasting success of said company. But you need both. So you can't have one and not the other. Kind of like going like wellness. You could, go to the gym and do a boot camp to get in shape, or you could do that on occasion. But if you just did your, 10,000 steps a day, boy, you'd have less work to do in the gym when it came around for maybe just before summer when you're doing that boot camp. So best to focus on both, and to make sure that you are doing so, you have to be mindful. So back to your budget question and how, and is that mutually exclusive, right, from growth? No, your budget helps you be focused and targeted as to where you're going to spend and ensure that you're doing so in a way that aligns to, again, your priority. And so that's why you have to do your budgeting, but then still allow yourself the space, the opportunity to innovate and be creative from a growth trajectory perspective. So you need to do both.
And when you go through budgeting exercises like this, say, you're getting ahead of the upcoming year, do you plan for innovative projects? Do you still create like an innovation bucket? How do you kind of plan for maybe future changes that you may not necessarily see 3-6 months down the line?
I think there's always been opportunities to try to have kind of this unassigned amount of budget dollars for the great idea or something new that's going to crop up.
Because we all saw Gen AI coming 2 years ago, right?
Yeah, if you have that at your disposal, I've seen where that works well. The other is, frankly, just making sure that you're being flexible. And so that you're not setting your budget in stone and casting that without recognizing that you're going to need to revisit and replan at times, right? Because, that great idea, that new proposal, or some unexpected headwinds or the opposite, tailwinds come and you want to take advantage or risk mitigate. And so what then needs to be deprioritized to account and allow for that new priority? And so I think it just comes back to agility. Budget, but have and plan for purposeful points in time to allow for that agility.
I think purposeful points in time is a really well articulated way of saying it. I want to come back to one of like the opening topics we first started, right? And are we kind of experiencing another iPhone moment in particular with AI? I would love to learn from you, Mica, from your experience implementing AI and thinking about, for example, like you just mentioned, right? Very purposeful design. How do you start to bring in or implement AI in something like operations?
So I think before folks just go try to jump on bandwagons and either buy or develop their own, I think be really careful about what is the use case, and again, what are the objectives and results that you're expecting, right? So don't just fumble around in the dark. What are you looking for and why? And then be very, I'll say, little c customer for the user that you're aiming to benefit with said use case. Think of that audience as your customer. Be very customer centric. Engage, design that use case with and for that particular customer. And then you can make sure that you aren't just putting in place different use cases that fail, frankly, from an adoption perspective, or miss the mark altogether. And now you have, frankly, put forth a lot of expenditure, time, resource towards something that is going to be shelfware. Or dare I say, go the opposite, erode, again, the trust, but not deliver and be a takeaway from productivity.
Right. No one wants a 9-month to 12-month project that never really matures into something that becomes viable even outside of the pilot. Right. That's really practical advice, Mica. Tell us a little bit about, are there any use cases or trends that you are personally watching or following when it comes to how AI is impacting go-to-market?
So I guess my biggest focus, and this is what I had been talking about for some time, is we tend to look at sales and how we make sales more productive in isolation. We tend to look at the end-to-end of buyer journey in very specific Chevron components, and we aim to optimize just within each discreetly. So what I'm most excited about is how do we break down those silos between marketing, right, sales, and then customer success. Those insights need to be shared and translated into next best action for the persona in question across that buyer journey in that moment in their system of engagement. And the best will be not just translate that into next best action, but actually put the persona in the driver's seat to then direct that action to be executed. So that's what I'm watching for, that breakdown across the enterprise. So it is certainly go to market, but all aspects of the enterprise that is serving that customer, that's what I'm watching and most keenly interested in.
Now we have to ask, tell us a little bit about how your vision from your experience of helping numerous companies, how does that align with some of the things we're doing over here at Adviso?
Yeah, so just super excited about the MIKI Chief of Staff Assistant. From what I just described and what I'm watching, again, breaking down those silos across the enterprise so that you literally get to this nirvana state of an autonomous enterprise. Yes, that is really where not only this MIKI Chief of Staff is headed, they're already on path. So if you think of it in kind of a 5-pillared and not a linear trajectory, but that's where we're headed. It was so nice to see in a very recent demo that MIKI's already there in many ways across each pillar to get to that nirvana state. So for those who have already kind of embraced and are on path to continue to leverage the Adviso platform across go-to-market, you'll be excited to hear that that's where they're going. And so I know that for those that are contemplating that build versus buy, that maybe are a little bit further behind in their journey from an AI, Gen AI, LLM perspective, you should take a look at what is already available from a buy perspective.
It's a fastest way to, I think, accelerate the model that large, mature enterprises are wanting, right? And that is something that can help their teams know at the right time with the right set of data, with the right prospect, how to deliver a personalized experience, whether it's like a personal message that the AI is helping you generate, a personal, just like good meeting experience, having all that data, being prepared, making sure you know exactly where they are in their journey and any other components. And I think to your point earlier, also enforcing that collaboration among the different teams that we all recognize are needed to not only deliver excellent customer experience, but to either close a deal or to certainly expand or to make that existing customer happy. So I think it very much matches what we have always wanted. And I think whether you're in operations, sales, or marketing, or CS, you're always kind of building towards. It's good to see that technology, it's available today, it's pervasive, and there's certainly providers like Adviso who could help companies accelerate that initiative and help them get there faster.
I'd say one more thing just to maybe build on what you said. It's not just a superior customer experience. It's a consumer grade experience. We have all gotten really spoiled at the level of personalization that happens in our non-work or personal life. And now we demand that. We expect that in our work life as well, be that as the employee or on the reciprocal side as the buyer, the prospect, the customer. We expect that in all facets. And that is the majority, based on some studies that I've seen, that expectation. So personalization and really knowing me and what I need right now, I expect.
Like we were joking, right? For our audience who are also parents, you look at what our kids have today and the type of tooling that's available to them. Well, you know, it would be very odd to have your 5-year-old maybe having a faster, better technology experience at school than you are at a company that is 24,000 employees or larger or smaller, right? So very, very true. And I think what we're going to see is that all kind of come together. And we're starting to see that already with today's generation of those entering the workforce. They want that consumer experience, very much to your point.
You're right. And there is that, the education space and industry is certainly, getting there too. There's all sorts of really mind-blowing ways in which our students are learning and being able to interact without having to get on a plane, right? And have that experience. They're able to do that, via some virtual experience of sorts. And again, put that in the workforce as you learn, right? And continue your professional growth. You expect that too. So yeah, exciting times. And as we started this conversation, that probably makes a lot of folks very uncomfortable because, oh boy, we are so far from that. The chasm seems unsurmountable or insurmountable. But no, for folks like me, what was it? Transforming the Transformers? That's exciting times because with challenge, with discomfort comes growth and frankly, success.
Yeah. And if you're not growing, right, then I guess you're going to have other issues. Mica, I really enjoyed today's conversation. Thank you for joining us on the show. I hope you have a lovely day and we appreciate it.
Thanks, Kevin.